Alright folks, we're here to talk about a little something called HE. First thing we're going to cover is we got my little Marauder here, direct fire HE. It's going to shoot at another armored vehicle. It gets its penetration value. It's the same thing as if firing a rifle like we saw in the earlier videos. You're going to measure for range, and this range is significant, right? It is going to get a negative modifier when it passes half range, slower velocity, all that other stuff. But it's going to roll the hit just like anything else. So in this situation, I'm a base of 3. I haven't moved. I'm shooting at a vehicle. Had I had an order dice on me that said I had advanced and was shooting, then I'd get that -1. The only time that cover would come into against a vehicle is if it's significant and covering more than 50% from the angle. So in this case, I just need a 3 to hit. I miss. Terrible answer, right? Miss again. We miss again. We miss again. The only thing this dice is going to. So we hit. Once we hit the penetration value, which on this weapon system is +5, against the armor that half track, which is a 7. It's firing at the side, not the top now, mind you, even though it is open top. But we fire against +5, that's a 7. Just remember that. So I roll for my damage. I get a 4 plus my 5 makes 9. That's a 7. I'm 2 over the minimum to match, which makes it massive damage, which means I roll on the damage chart twice. I get 4 and a 5. The vehicle's destroyed. Had I rolled a crew stunned, and the vehicle will also be destroyed. Had I rolled a fire test, he would pick up the extra pins caused by it, and I have to take his test, and if he fails his test, he'd be destroyed. It's an armored vehicle, so if it is destroyed, it stays on the board. Generally, we just flip it sideways or whatever, put a smoke marker on it, however you want to do it. If it had not been destroyed, there's a chance that it creates pins. In the event that it creates pins, based on the weapon system, some are 1d2, 1d3, things of that nature. So on a 1d2, I rolled a 6. You divide that 6 by, if it was a d2, so 4, 5, 6 would be 2 pins. 1, 2, 3 would have been 1 pin, so we pick up 2 extra pins. If it was a 1d3 and I rolled that 6, I'd pick up 3 pins. If I rolled a 3 or 4, I would have picked up 2 pins. A 1 or 2 would have picked up 1 pin. Things of that nature. That's direct fire HE. Indirect fire HE, I have to have line of sight to the target, unless, just for situation, I say I have this handy dandy spotter for some reason back here, and my mortar is hidden behind this wall, even though we say we can see out of this. Say I put it here, my line of sight is obstructed. My spotter can see, I can shoot at it as long as my spotter or the mortar do not fire. The first round out of a mortar at a target where the mortar, the spotter, and the target, the 3 of them have not moved, is a 6 to hit. 6 to hit is challenging, so I miss. On my next turn, as long as no one, and I generally put the little markers down, as long as he doesn't move, I don't move, and my spotter doesn't move, pin on 5. So in the next turn, I roll 5. The mortar fires. In this case, it's a 2-inch, which is the smaller circle on this. It drops on, doesn't really matter, it's a vehicle. It's open top. So against open top HE that's falling into the top, I get a +1 damage. It's like a +2 pen. So I roll a 1d6 for damage. I add 1 for being open top, so that makes it a 7. It's an armor 7 vehicle, so I just glanced. But then I add the penetration value of the gun, which is a +2. That makes it a 9. 7 +1 for on top, +2 from the mortar itself, makes it a 9. Double damage, massive damage. Now again, open tops have another penalty on the chart. When they go to the damage chart, you get to add +1 to whatever you're going to roll. So I roll them again one at a time, a 2 and a 4, which becomes a 3 and a 5, and he's destroyed. A 5 destroys him. That's how HE works, both direct fire and indirect fire. Now if I have direct line of fire with the mortar, I don't need a spotter. Doesn't matter how many crew I lose. Doesn't matter if I'm inexperienced. Inexperience usually gives you a -1 to everything. But if you're a mortar, you're always on a base of 6. Then we have things called multiple launchers, which can shoot all over the area. And you pretty much nominate the target you're going to do, and then you roll against each of those targets. But they always hit on a 6. It doesn't drop down from the time at wow. So it's insane. I'm glad we videotaped this, right? So the first target got hit, the second target hit, third target hit. Most multiple launchers fire 3-inch target or 3-inch platters, and it's based on a target that's within 6 inches of that. So if these fellows were like this, and I fired at him and hit, I measure within 6 inches, or within 6 inches I fired and I hit, and then within 6 inches I fired and I hit. And you can put the platter over if it's infantry or whatever. If it's a vehicle, doesn't really matter. Sometimes infantry will be next to vehicles, and we'll talk about that here in a second, or there'll be multiple units together. But the next turn, even if these fellows don't move, it's still on 6s for a multiple launcher. And so we miss, but I still, even if I miss, I get to go for anything within 6 inches of the initial target. If it's within a building, say this is classified as building instead of ruins, it would be within 6 inches of the building. It becomes a huge area. Not such a good plan. Now say we're firing that mortar at a half track whose squad just jumped out. And this is why that 1-inch template becomes important. I fire, I hit, regardless of whatever turn it is I get to hit at, right? I give my opponent the template. You don't have to. It doesn't say you do it or they do it. I do it out of fairness and balance. As written, you must cover as many as possible, even partially. So here I'm looking at 4 troops being covered. Some people will try to do this and double pin a vehicle because it could be under, but as written, from the target must cover as much as the target as possible. Now if I targeted this first, even if I squeeze like this, I'm actually putting the skinnier part of the template over that, so it's not covering as much as it can. This would be covering as much as it can. It would be, the center of it would have to be over, and it doesn't say center has to be over, it says as much as possible. But the measurements of the device itself, if you put the center of it to a side, it's no longer covering as much as possible. So hitting the squad, I'd be getting 4. Now with this medium mortar +2 penetration, it's 4 folks that I have the potential to hit. When firing upon, there's a chance that they declare that they're going to go down. If they go down, then it halves the number that can be hit. So still 4, but I'd only roll against 2. If they had already activated and couldn't go down, then it would be against 4. Say they went to fire or whatever. I get the penetration bonus of the mortar round. And even if it's at max range, it doesn't reduce direct fire or mortar rounds. Any type of armor piercing weapon doesn't reduce against infantry. It goes -1, just like rifles do against people at long range against the vehicle, but against people, a +2 penetration is still a +2 penetration. So 4 dice hitting on this template, say there were 5s, veterans, right? That +2 reduces that to 3s. So 4 folks under there, killing on 3s. Kill 2. And then it has, by memory, I can't remember, 1d2 pins. So then I put 3 pins in a heartbeat on these fellas. So if they hit, they can be super accurate or super efficient. If they don't hit, they're not so good. And now that I've hit, as long as my mortar and or the spotter that I use to draw line of fire to them, and the target does not move, it can still shoot, do whatever, but as long as it doesn't physically move from this location, every turn after this I'm dropping rounds on a 2+. So that's another hit. I cover it with a 3. Once it's zeroed in, it becomes 2+. Now if you shot at a building, it's a little different. You roll a hit, you hit the building, and then depending on the floors of the building, you break the dice down. So if it was a 3-story, 3 floors that you could occupy, to include the roof, if you can occupy the roof, so say 3 floors. 1 to 2 would be first floor. You could do it that way, or you can do the breakdown of it goes through the first floor and goes down. You just call the floors and you identify where it's going to go, like it explodes on the roof. And if they're in the basement, everybody's fine. So you hit the building, but it blew up on the roof. Things of that nature. And that should cover HE. Let me know if you got questions.